Afternoon is here. Hello, you're watching The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. Coming up this afternoon, pressure is mounting on government to compensate victims of the deadly Apiati explosion that killed more than 10 people and razed to the ground an entire community. We'll bring you details shortly of excerpts of that report that we're getting to learn of from some pressure groups. It's all coming up here on The Pulse. And the last man standing. This afternoon on The Pulse, we tell you the story of one man who is making one more attempt at getting defunct GN Savings and Loans Company back to life. Philip Setfire, who went on a one-man protest earlier today, says President Akufo-Addo must reinstate the bank.
I passionately appeal to Your Excellency, and with the powers graciously vested and entrusted in you by the ordinary citizens, such as myself, Papa Kwajo Sapia, to bring back GN Bank to restore our livelihood.
A little later, we are asking that question: why is the cost of tertiary education becoming unbearable? Stay with us as we broaden the conversation on the high cost of tertiary education here in the country. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Digny Lu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. We're on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. I'm Blessed Sogah. This is The Pulse. JoyNews is independent, fearless, and credible. Welcome to the program. Well, it was shut down some 3 years ago, and all attempts to bring it back to life has proven futile. This was the reason for which thousands of employees of GN Savings and Loans Company were sent packing home owing to the collapse of the bank. Well, founder of the group, Dr. Kwesi Indom, on several occasions has denied any wrongdoing, arguing that the bank was in a failed state because government was indebted to GN Savings and Loans. Well, 3 years down the line, one man is on a course to make another attempt at getting GN Savings and Loans Company, as it was at the time, back to life. Philip Setfire earlier today held a one-man protest through some of the selected streets of the capital to present a petition to President Akufo-Addo at the Black Stars Square. He's been making some demands.
Now, and I read, Your Excellency, a citizen appeal to the President to bring back GN Bank. I'm a former employee of GN Bank. I worked for the bank for 8 years before its license was revoked in August 2019. My dream to work at the bank to build a model financial institution with a unique characteristics would cut short by the sudden revocation of the operation license of the bank. Even though some of us receive various sum of money as severance package through your government, gracious arrangement and concern for the employees, our current situation does not compare with our full-time employment with GN Bank then. I passionately appeal to Your Excellency as the father of the nation to consider all the factors, especially the plight of the former employees and our dependents, and with the powers graciously vested and entrusted in you by the ordinary citizens, such as myself, Papa Kwajo Sapia, to bring back GN Bank to restore our livelihood.
GN Bank inculcated service attitude into the mind of the Ghanaians. But now, they don't know where to save their money. No bank to work. Wona me how nyina. Aba wani mo. Na me ni se ready wo kasa. Me how nyina. Yada diri nyina. Ebe yedi. Enu ti se ready kasa. Mama kuma to me yebu.
Demeso.
Me nya me kasa. Oh, my ready
here. I'm here to present my petition to His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to have mercy on us 6,000 GN Bank staff to restore the license of GN Bank for us so that we also can get something to do to feed our dependents. Thank you.
Also, that's what transpired moments ago, making that demand on behalf of over 6,000 redundant staff of GN Savings and Loans. Well, for those of you who are not aware of the official reasons for which GN Bank was shut down by the central bank, here's an account for you on the screens right now explaining what transpired and why we're here today. Of course, the story all starts with the decision of the Bank of Ghana to shut down GN Savings and Loans. So let's bring you excerpts of what it is that the account of the Bank of Ghana is on this. What we do know is that GN Savings and Loans Company Limited was originally incorporated as First National Savings and Loans Company Limited and licensed as a Savings and Loans Company on the 8th of May 2006. Now, GN subsequently was issued with a universal banking license by the Bank of Ghana on the 4th of September 2014 and was renamed GN Bank Limited. Fast forward in 2019, the Bank of Ghana approved a request to reclassify GN Bank from a universal bank to a savings and loans company out of course, that decision by the central bank to increase its new minimum requirements. Of course, banks at the time were supposed to raise about 400 million Ghana cedis by the 31st of December 2018, with GN Savings and Loans was obviously attempting to find a way around. Fast forward, the bank got closed down or shut down by the central bank for a number of reasons. The official accounts we got from the Bank of Ghana is that they concluded that GN was insolvent under Section 1234 of the Banks and SDIs Act 2016 and being in breach of its key prudential regulatory requirements. Beyond that as well, the capital adequacy ratio of GN Savings and Loans, or GN Bank at the time, was way above 61%, in breach of the minimum requirement of some 13%. So it was part of the reasons for which the central bank had to take the decision it took at the time. GN Bank, or GN Savings and Loans, was equally faced with a severe liquidity crisis, with numerous companies receiving, many complaints being sent, obviously, to the Financial Stability Department of the Bank of Ghana from some aggrieved customers who have made attempts to withdraw funds from the GN Savings and Loans Company institution. Of course, they were unable to access those deposits, and based on that, many appeals were sent to the central bank in the last several months, leading to the collapse of the bank. Of course, GN consistently, and this is an account from the central bank, failed to meet the requirements. That's the minimum cash reserve requirement of some 10% of its total deposits since the end of the first quarter of 2019. So it was part of the reasons for which the central bank was going ahead to collapse or shut down GN Bank. GN Bank has constantly made this argument that government owes it a total amount of some 942.98 million Ghana cedis, out of which 102 million represent some interim payment certificates that it was due the bank. However, the Bank of Ghana says its checks proved otherwise, as the only amount they were able to verify was 30.33 million Ghana cedis, which was confirmed by the Ministry of Finance on the 6th of August 2019, a reason for which the central bank did not buy the position of GN Savings and Loans, a reason for which they were obviously taking off the books. But one man is back asking President Akufo-Addo to try and do something about this. Philip Sapaya is a former employee of the GN Savings and Loans Company. Of course, we've seen the pictures on the screens. One man on the streets in the middle of policemen, and you are asking the president to do one thing, bring back GN Savings and Loans.
Yes.
Some say you are not serious about this.
Why am I not serious? I'm really serious. I'm serious because, you know, the way, you know, about 6,000 workers are in the house without job. Seriously, the hardship which we are going through, my brother, it is not easy. As I'm talking to you, my child is in the house. You understand? Last year, I was telling one of your reporters that 2020, my daughter asked me, Daddy, what is school fees? Because I was paying it. She doesn't know anything about school fees. But now she was asking me, Daddy, what is school fees? You understand? That's why she's asking me, because now it's like they always sack her to come to the house to take what? To take fees.
You're not able to pay fees?
I'm not able to pay fees. I'm telling you. It's reality. It's not something like somebody want to pay somebody or somebody want to do something wrong against somebody. I don't have anything to do with anybody. You understand me?
Where's the severance package that you were paid?
Thank you. I like that question. They paid us some severance. Ask yourself, how much? You understand? One. And when we came home, we borrowed a lot of monies from people, from friends. And I used my money to buy a Tata truck.
Oh, you bought a truck?
I bought it. It got bent. I can show you. I can send it to them. I can show you the videos. It got bent. You understand me? So what you want me to do? But GN Bank was feeding me, giving me monthly salaries, paying my insurance and other things. Seriously. So GN Bank was better than you giving me severance. For what?
But it was still money that was given to you to at least continue.
And I used the money to buy Tata truck, so, because at that time, I didn't know what to do with that money. So I used the money to buy a truck, and it got bent. So what do you want me to do?
You're crying over your own loss, because out of the 6,000 you're talking about, how many of the 6,000 do we even have complaining that indeed they are not able to fend for themselves?
Boss, I was, let me say, a head of a micro enterprise. Let me say so.
Right.
I was at the operation side. I was managing about 1,750 mobile bankers. Seriously. Do you know the number of calls I normally get a day? From them, boss, we need 20 Ghana. Boss, we need 10 Ghana. Yet 3 days today, somebody called me. Boss, I need 100 Ghana cedi to add it to my money to go and then find something to do. I am telling you. Serious.
So you're not the only one in this?
Boss, I'm not the only one in this situation. And even when I was about to do this, we have a platform. I put it there. That Charlie, what are we doing? Because the complaints are too much. The complaints are too much. What are we doing? I said, now, let's do something to, to tell the president to have mercy on us. He's our father. He's a listener. You understand? He will listen to us. He's our father. Let's do so that the president can do something. They said he can even get money from Kaswa to come.
Oh, that's why you went on the streets alone?
Yeah, because me.
So you were on the streets alone because they don't even have money to join you.
Some people are they don't know what to do. I'm telling you. It's not something that we are doing to, oh God. Unless God.
So how were you able to come there, though?
As a human being, I don't need anybody to tell me that, Philip, you are hungry. And you know that GN Bank is on our CV. That even compels me to do this. GN Bank is on our CV. Wherever you go, when there is an employment someplace and you send your CV, they will call you. The questions which they will ask you, as if GN Bank was in your pockets. Because GN Bank is in your CV. As if when you come, you collapse the company too. I'm telling you. That one is killing us.
So most of you are not getting jobs.
Serious, because of
you're being denied jobs because you're previous employees of.
I'm telling you.
I mean,
it's on my CV.
How do you prove that to someone who's the average person?
Oh, I have gone for a lot of interviews. That time I went to Kumasi, was it last year? And even they were interviewing. I was even angry, and I paused them, and I asked the director that I want to say something, and I told them, frankly, that they should listen to me well. Integrity is not true unless it is tested. I told them. I said integrity is not true unless it is tested. I didn't bring Dr. Yindum here. I came, so test me and see whether I can prove.
And yet you were denied the job.
Yes!
And you believe it's because of your involvement with GN?
No, I didn't.
With GN.
No, I didn't. I didn't believe it. Right. That one, no. Even that one, they called me.
Okay.
But the salary was
okay. Was still not enough for you. So you have the opportunity, and that's where I was going to. The fact that the banking sector is still available for most of you, 6,000 of you, to try and find other forms of employment within. Why are you not applying to just take up the opportunity?
Oh, you know something. You need to calculate certain things. That time somebody also called me from Tema for me to come and join the whatever. But the monthly salary was about, I think, 800 Ghana. Just imagine. TNT going there. When you calculate it, boss. Serious.
So if GN Savings and Loans is supposed to be reinstated, I mean, of what benefits would it be to us when, of course, the central bank has given its position on this, saying that you could not even meet the regulatory requirements, a reason for which you need to go off the books. They're saving the financial sector, you agree, which needs a lot of investor confidence, right?
Boss, GN Bank was not insolvent. GN Bank was solvent. Because what is banking? What is banking? Let's know. You, the media, you should explain banking to the people for them to understand banking. Banking does what? They sell money. How do we sell money? We sell money through what? Investment and other things, isn't it? You understand me? Now, GN Bank gave contractors money. Government contractors money. Government contractors money for them to pay it back. The government didn't pay the money. Our money is still with the government.
Yeah, how much?
Oh, it's about getting to 2 billion.
Yeah, but the BOG is disputing that as of the time you were taking off the books, just 30 million, as we've pointed out to our viewers. So it was still inadequate to meet the capital requirements here.
I don't want us to, I don't want us to go to the court, whatever. Right. No. I don't have the power, the mandate even to talk about it. But what I want to tell you is that our monies are with the government. You understand? We have money with the government, contractors. We can prove to you. Even, you know something, when they revoked the license and Eric Nipper came, Eric Nipper wrote a letter to finance minister to release some of the IPCs to him.
As the receiver?
As a receiver. It is there on records. The IPCs, you know the IPCs? Yeah. So why did he write that letter? It was because GN Bank had money with the government. GN Bank, nobody can prove to me that GN Bank was insolvent. Boss, you know something? GN Bank, the shareholders, they are very good. All across the country, GN Bank was the only bank in Ghana.
Well, that's your argument. We don't want to base on what you on hearsay and what it is. But of course, you have a special interest in that.
No, this is not.
You project the brand.
No, this is not hearsay. Right. None of the bank want to go to Pusika to go and open a bank there. You understand? Now, even when Mr. Ken Ofurata, my father Ken Ofurata came, he was, I think, reading his budget statement one of the years. He said, now Ghanaians like savings. From who? From which bank? If you don't open bank at Pusiga, how can you do that research to make sure that people are, people like, savings? Pusiga. The other time we went to Nadoli, when we opened a branch there, we went to Nadoli. A certain man came saying that, let's go, I have money in the ground. We went there to dig the ground, to remove the money and come and put it inside his account. Because of what? GN Bank is there.
Okay, but all that is over now because the bank is no more.
Yes.
You are asking President Akufo-Addo to do what exactly? Because mind you, the president does not have the power to just order the central bank to reinstate the GN group as you want it to be.
To me, what I can say is that the president is a father for all. You understand? And we have vested power in him. He has control over certain things. This one, I'm not compelling the president to do what he cannot do. But because of the power which has been vested in him, what I can say is that the president can do something for us. Seriously. So this one is a plea to the president. His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He's a father. He's a listener. Seriously.
Yeah, to do what exactly? What did you state in that petition?
No, to restore GN Bank for us. Because everything now,
when the
GN
Bank of Ghana says you're not meeting the requirements,
please,
what exactly are you expecting the president to do?
Please, we're having money with the government. That's why when Eric Nipa came, he wrote a letter to finance minister, give me some of the IPCs.
But it's all over now. GN Bank, GN Savings and Loans is no more.
We are appealing to the president. Mr. President, our buildings are there. The shareholders built about 200 branches. No bank can do it. Across the country, 200 branches, they are there. Our generators are still sitting there. We have about 300 generators because every branch has a generator. Cars, so meaning 300 cars as well. They are all there. Even we have a paying slip, withdrawal slip, checkbooks, opening account forms. Everything is there. We just need that paper. And my position is that the president should have mercy on us because GN Bank is a private entity, Ghanaian-owned company. Just imagine, Indum is being recognized. From where? US. Somebody from Ghana. He's been recognized as one of the entrepreneurs. Open a company there for even American citizens to get it something to do. What is the inflation rate of US and then inflation rate of Ghana? But they recognize him because of what he is doing. He is helping the economy to grow. That's why I am appealing to the government, the president, that please, Nana, we beg you in the name of God, have mercy on us. I'm not saying if without GN Bank, maybe I cannot get anything to do. But let GN Bank also to come and support the economic whatever. You understand? For the youth to get something to do.
Some say you're not in this alone because when the restructuring of the banking sector was taking place, some other banks were taking off the books. So sparing GN Savings and Loans will complicate the problem, you agree, right?
No. Me, I don't understand the reason why they collapse,
the others.
The other banks. But me, I am speaking from a different perspective. I was working at a bank, and I know I can boldly say that, I was even.
So that's what you can speak to, basically.
Yeah, that's all. So because I know something from GN Bank, that's why I'm speaking in favor of GN Bank. For Nana to bring GN Bank, not the other banks.
Okay.
You understand? Because I don't know anything about it.
Okay, I understand. It's a fair point to make. So going forward, how many days, what expectations do you have, and how would you want the government to deal with this practically?
Oh, Nana, to me, I know that as I have presented my petition to Nana, almost you will go through, read it, and think about it. I know my mother, Rebecca, will talk to Nana from the bed, seriously, to listen to your child, what he's saying. I believe, I hope so. Nana is a listener. Seriously. I always say that governance is like marriage. We always say that you are the head, but who is the neck? you are the head. But who is the neck? Is it not the woman? And marriage is the only institution that a woman has every ministerial positions in the house. Do you know that? A woman is a finance minister, a woman is health, a woman is trade and industry, a woman is what? They have everything.
So what's the point?
No, my point is that Nana, you know, I don't have problem with Nana, but the followers, the appointees are disturbing him. Seriously, are disturbing him. I don't have problem with him. The appointees are disturbing him. That's why they used to say that any successful man, there is a woman.
Okay, so so your point is that the president should read this, look at the concerns, and reinstate you.
And reinstate us.
Okay, well.
That's all.
Well, Philip.
Yes, sir.
This is all time will allow us.
Thank you.
We wait to see what the president will say about this. But of course, we need to say you did such a great job by walking on the streets all alone without the company of others who are in this with you.
You know, I call them, but some of them are dead. Some of them, they don't have money to come. So I decided to take it upon myself. Nobody, I don't have anybody supporting me. Right. I didn't get anybody to support me. But I did it, you know, on my own. Yeah, and even to bring the government attention.
And I'm sure you want to thank the police service as well. For
Please, one thing, please, sorry. Police Regional Commander, COP Garba, boss, I don't know. The perception outside about the police is somehow wrong. Now, if I see you talking against a police man, I'll fight with you. The man, they are so powerful, and Mr. Bempa, the operation, may God bless them.
You felt like a king today, I can imagine. That Philip Sefaya is one of the, of course, former employees of GN Savings and Loans, which is now defunct. But for now, investigative committee report into the deadly Apiati explosion is recommending compensation for victims. We'll bring you details of that report shortly, but as we commemorate 1 year of the disaster that flattened the whole community and killed at least 13 people, Maxwell Agbagba, my colleague, brings us a story recounting events in that small community near Bogoso in the Western region.
The explosion rocked the small community near Bogoso exactly a year ago. Apiatse was flattened. Bodies were littered all over, with some of them trapped and buried under the rubble. The vehicle carrying the explosives shattered into tiny pieces.
My old house is closer to the road.
Oh, your house is closer to the road.
I have so many things.
Joseph Apia was at work when he was informed about the death of his son, 21-year-old Justice Kwesi Takwa. He also lost his house and the pub.
I've lost so many things. Like I referee said, I have drinking spot somewhere, store somewhere, and then 5 bedrooms. And then my new house is 10 bedrooms self-contained.
10 bedrooms?
Yeah, each room having its own washroom. When the spark started, he rather rushed to the house and then woke the mother up. The mother was sleeping. Then went back to take videos of the incident. That is what happened. That is what my wife told me.
So he was very close to the vehicle?
My old house is closer to the road.
Oh, your house is closer to the road?
I have so many things. Drinking spot, 5 rooms, and then the new house.
Okay.
Store and other stuff.
Janet Amate's 1-month-old baby miraculously escaped death after their building collapsed on her. She sustained injuries on her face. She could not stop crying as medical personnel treated her injuries. The explosion led to many deaths, and those who survived are living serious effects of it. A retired ear, nose and throat surgeon, Dr. Paul Kwao Intodi, says some of the residents are experiencing mild to moderate hearing loss.
And so far, we've seen about 38 of the victims, most of them with bilateral perforation of the tympanic membrane, the eardrums. A few of them infected because even though they had been given prescriptions, I think they did not manage to get some of the treatment. One or two had their middle ear infected. And almost all of them had mild to moderate hearing loss.
There were claims that the truck carrying the explosives did not have any escort, contrary to the safety regulations governing the transportation of such materials. The Port Divisional Chief Nana Atakwejo Brempe II says the truck had no escort. President Akufo-Addo made a personal donation of 100,000 cedis and promised the government will rebuild Apiatse. The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources also launched the Apiatse Endowment Fund to support those affected by the explosion. And a 5-member committee was launched to check and coordinate materials for building the community. In February 2022, the company involved in the manufacture of the explosives that devastated Apiatse Magsam Company Limited said it disagrees with findings of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources that suggest its regulatory breaches led to the explosion.
Well, my colleague Maxwell Aguba with that one. Also, our Western Regional correspondent Natalia Kwanzaa went back into the community and spoke with some survivors and sent through this.
You know, not me pamade. It's not me pamade, but I am a dukechi. It's me who be nejumo.
I was a seamstress and I was home when I heard a bang. I wondered what it was. Although I didn't see what caused the fire, I saw the truck catch fire.
Cecilia Aban is a seamstress here at Apiatse and one of the survivors of that gut-wrenching incident here at Apiatse that killed more than a dozen people.
I
was looking for the driver, but realized he was standing next to me. I had left my house for an errand when I heard the explosion. I was hit by a stray metal in the buttocks. The metal has been removed, but now I struggle to sit down to work. I am in serious pain.
She still feels some pains in her vagina.
So we're trying to find a better place and then stand. Because you have been car. And there is a place we drew. So we moved to maybe a way drew one night, I observed whatever. Immediately we took some few steps, then boom! We had a blast. Unfortunately for me, my laptop bag, through my lens, scattered all over. But before me, I was in front, but they were all down. But God being so good, I saw my leg torn into two.
Like two?
Two.
Can you describe it?
It was torn into two, like from here. What's so day? And I think, let me check if I have the images. In fact, it was very, I was so scared.
Okay.
I knew that was the end of life for me. So I was just sitting down. But I had all my ID cards in my laptop bag, which has been thrown somewhere. So I was trying to get it so that in case I die, they will find my ID cards on me and then know that this is him. I'm very lucky I had this small phone to which is in my pocket. So the only thing, I saw the bleeding, everything. Then I had to call my wife. My dear, I think, yeah, we're just traveling. So if this is what has happened, this is what has happened, and I think I cannot make it because I saw people who were close to me dead.
I couldn't look Kofi straight in his eyes throughout our conversation. At a point, he lifted his shirt to show me how he now attends nature's call. A tube-like container with a deposit of a mushy substance in it hangs around his stomach. The substance in there is a fecal matter. Just like using a chamber pot for such purposes, he disposes of the waste, wipes it up, and moves on until he feels the urge to respond to nature again.
This is the plastic bag that collects my excreta when it accumulates.
And I Jones also.
Jones all right.
But toilet men I want to make said you'll be a corner.
Sir.
And I feel the same.
When you someone said I feel fine. They connected my intestines to it through a tube. It is very uncomfortable. I'll be very happy if they remove it. I had to use one plastic bag for 4 days and then change it into a new one. But 4 days time, you and if you was answered from me, I'm dressed for Friday.
The impact.
Story there. Well, mining advocacy NGO, the WACAM is accusing the state and the mining industry of lack of transparency and accountability over circumstances surrounding the Apiati explosion. Let's share with you details of that report. But before we do that, my colleague Maxwell Akugba is joining us in studio. Maxwell, you're just returning from that very press conference. So let's get to it. You have excerpts on your screens right now talking about what it is that WACAM is concerned about. So let's get to it in terms of the issues being raised here. So Maxwell, help us understand what's happening. The first point is that the state and industry have not been transparent and accountable to citizens when it comes to the investigations. That's what the Wasa Association of Communities affected by mining are talking about.
Well, that's true. And that was a key point that came up at the press conference. Speaker after speaker mentioned that it's important for government to make known or public the full report and then the details of the investigations that were commissioned into the circumstances surrounding the explosion at Apiati. You remember that the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources actually gave us some tiny bit of it, you know, but WACAM is saying that we need to know the details because this is an issue of public safety and this has to be made public so the discussions there, you know, can
So I guess that's what's being raised at point 2 when they say the outcomes of the investigation have not been made available to the public. And then there's also the point about the Ghanaian populace should be sensitized enough on the dangers and some issues associated with accidents involving hazardous and explosive materials. Why are they concerned about that?
I'm sure you've seen many times and we've had cause to actually complain about how people rush to crash scenes, especially when it happens, because I mean we are in the age of social media. People want to be the first to break the news. They don't want to even wait for journalists to do that. They hear there's a crash, they rush there, they take their mobile phones and then want to film, you know, everything, regardless of the, you know, the dangers and the consequences involved. In fact, one of the people who I spoke to in my report talked about the 21-year-old boy, you know, who died. Apparently, he was actually very close to the crash scene when the incident, you know, happened. You know, went home, told his mother that this is what had happened, rushed back to the scene, stood very close to it, and was filming.
Only for that to happen.
Exactly, for the second explosion to happen, and then that killed them instantly. And then we are also learning also that some people who were killed, you know, were not residents of Apiate. Some of them were in vehicles, stopped, walked, got closer to the scene, and then, you know, the explosion happened. When I went to the scene, I saw how everything was shattered into pieces. In fact, I held one of the engine blocks of the vehicle. That's the only piece shattered into pieces. You can't find that truck that was carrying, you know, the explosives. So that's the concern of WACAM, that people have to be sensitized, that if there's a crash, don't go closer to the scene, especially when, you know, it involves a vehicle carrying hazardous, you know, materials.
And there are a number of issues they're raising. We'll get to all of that. For instance, people are tending to drift to accident scenes just to be the first to capture it. But beyond that as well, they're raising other concerns, issues about regulation.
Exactly.
And they're making the point, for instance, that had the company acquired escorts to the truck that was carrying the explosives, they believe that, of course, that may not have happened in the first place. That's established by even the investigative report.
Well, on the ground, in fact, when the incident happened, one of the very confusing issues, you know, because we're getting reports from different quarters about what exactly happened. The residents told us that there was no escort, you know, accompanying the explosive, you know, truck. In fact, I spoke to a senior person within the Ghana Police Service, and he showed me a document, you know, suggesting that a police officer was deployed to accompany the vehicle. Then we had the Bipo divisional chief coming out to say that there was no escort. WACAM is today telling us that from their report and their investigations on the ground, there was no escort. And the talk, if you speak to the experts, in fact, the regulations demand that there must be an escort with any vehicle carrying explosives. It is WACAM's view and assertion that if an escort had been with the explosives truck, they would have had the signal first and then be able to stop any oncoming vehicle, you know, to even
prevent anyone at all.
You know, exactly, and even signaling the people
so let's
to run
deal
away
with
quickly.
two more issues quickly before we hear from the group. There's the issue about compensation and what it is that the report is saying about that, because WACAM is, I mean, giving us a sense that in that very committee report that was released by the, released by the ministry, but of course that the minister has possession of, they believe that it is firmly inscripted in there that the victims have to be compensated. And it's not happened for about a year now.
Yeah,
why?
So that's the information we got from WACAM, that when they went to the ground, spoke to the people, they gave the impression that although they are being fed, although they are being given food on daily, they received some payments of just like about 200 cedis. And this is not really the proper compensation.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be.
Exactly. It's not supposed to be the proper compensation that they're waiting for. But you speak to a lot of the residents, and there's a lot of talk about if the company involved in the manufacture of the explosives, that's Maxam. You know, Maxam is saying that, no, do not blame us. It's Artan's logistics, because they were transporting, you know, the explosives. But we have agreed, you know, to pay the $6 million US. Right. It's the arguments of some of the residents that if that fine has been paid, what is really delaying, you know, compensation?
We'll hear from Dr. Emmanuel Tinkran shortly. The very last point, you were there 2 weeks ago in the community.
Yeah.
Does it look like Apeti will be back to normal?
Well, from what I saw and from the assurances that we got from the minister and then the architect working, and then the contractors working on the project, it looks like we will be successful. They told us that by June, the place should be ready. The first phase should be ready, and then the residents, you know, should be resettled. But again, there are concerns about their funds drying out. So if you don't have the needed funds to continue with the project, then it means that the June timeline will not be able to. You know.
But I guess all of this is being re-echoed by WACAM. I understand they held a press conference today.
Exactly. So I've been speaking to the executive director of WACAM, Daniel Wusu-Cranton, and he has been making the point about compensation.
It doesn't take away the important issue of the effect of the accident on them, short, medium, and long term. And when that comes in, because it's a corporate body that may not, I'm using may advisedly in the sense that because the report hasn't come, we want to get a report and be able to say things confidently. But if there were lapses in enforcement of the regulation and the company is found liable, then the company has to pay compensation. And that is why we are saying that the report, the fact-finding committee's report, is very, very critical for the people who have been affected, and for those of us who also have an interest in ensuring that we protect the rights of people, vulnerable people. Because it gives us clear standing on what to do, on what kind of actions that we can take, or we can support the communities to take. And that is why we are hammering on the fact that the government or the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources should try and make the report available. It is also important for us to know that this is an issue of public interest. Once it's a public interest issue, then once the fact-finding committee report is out, so you take a very short time, and then you don't even get people to start finding out where is the report. But when the committee was being set up, the minister made very progressive statements, about his interest, in ensuring that the rules were enforced, and that if there are violations, they would take actions. So it has taken a bit of a long time, and 1 year down the line, we don't see the reason why the report hasn't come out. Yeah. In fact, when the report comes out, we'll be able to be very clear as to the infractions, what rules were not respected, and how the company behaved, and those things. And that would form the basis for further actions, whether if there are legal actions, to be taken. And that is why we know that is the right of the people to go for compensation, but some preliminary things are very necessary to.
Well, I want to bring in now Dr. Emmanuel Tinkran, leader of the PRT research team, of course belonging to the Wacom group that put out some of the concerns. Thank you, Doc, for your time here on The Pulse. So where do we start off from, and what's paramount to you as a group? Compensation or making the report public?
And good afternoon to all your listeners. Well, it's difficult for me to say whether we should just concentrate on compensation or the report. But the truth is that we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that something very terrible happened to Apiate, people in Apiate. Now, it was of so much public interest that everybody is interested in knowing exactly what happened. And that's why the committee, for instance, was formed. I mean, if we are Ghanaians and something of a public, nature happens, and we are all concerned about, at least the report, the investigation, if it comes out to the report and we are all aware, then at least, if for nothing at all, we get lessons from what happened. Okay, we get lessons from what happened. Then, of course, we can then move on to the issues of compensation. If you go to the place now, like your colleague said, if you go to a place now, you can see that the people are really living in conditions that, it is not easy for them to do. And therefore, the issues of compensation, it is only fair that they are compensated somehow. But of course, then there are issues of who has to pay for who has to take charge of compensation, etc., etc. That's another discussion. But the truth is that once we have used public funds to set up a committee to do an investigation into an activity that affected the public, or a group of people within that particular public, it is only fair for us to know what the findings were.
Yes, we do need to know about the findings, but some say we've gone past that. Government is focusing much more on reconstructing and rebuilding the city. It's also coming at a cost.
Yes, and that's where another matter, you see, I can understand government. I can understand that, of course, the citizens of Apiate are citizens of Ghana. And therefore, if something has happened to them, government should do all that it can to ameliorate the situation. That is true. But at what cost? Okay, in the environmental, in the environmental management, etc., there's something we call polluter pays principle. Somebody's, business activity leads to all this, problems. And the government takes it upon itself to incur so much cost around a period like this. Okay, I don't want to be political, but around a period like this where the system is struggling to survive, we go and say we have inherited somebody else's problem, we are going to deal with it at all these expenses. Okay, so these are some of the issues that come up. Who is culpable? How much is the person who is culpable for whatever has happened? How much is that person, for instance, contributing to solving the mess that has been created?
Do you have suspicions as Wakam that someone is being left off the hook? A reason for which you would want sanctions to apply strictly?
You see, it's difficult for me to say. It's difficult for me to say that one. You see, but the point is that there's a regulation. Okay, there's a law that regulates what should happen when explosives are being transported, where all the provisions under that law respected in that particular instance. If they were not, what then happens? I mean, in Ghana, people are in jail. For instance, I'm not saying anybody should go to jail for some of these things. I'm simply talking about culpability. People are in jail for simply stealing a fowl. Okay, a fowl. People are in jail for simply stealing a fowl. Now, somebody or something or someone or an institution or a system was negligible, that leads to death of some Ghanaians, that leads to injury to people, that leads to all these, and then we don't even know who is responsible for the person to even take part, okay, so that we are aware that, okay, this person was culpable, this is the responsibility the person has for everything that is happening. Then the next question is, why then did we form even a committee of investigation if the report was not going to be made public? There's a public accident, with public interest. We use taxpayers' money to set up a committee to come out with findings, and then it cannot be made public. So it's nobody. We are not saying somebody is being left off the hook, etc. But we are simply saying that it is. I mean, it is strange that this document cannot be a public document.
Respite in the law do you intend to make use of in trying to get the answers? Some say you have the option of the right to information. Are you willing to make use of, for instance, the right to information just to try and impress those in authority, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, to act about this?
Okay. Now, my response is, I am a researcher, okay? So the institution or any other, Ghanaian can take that particular route, okay? I am a researcher. I have just found the issues. But then another strange thing is that what happened there was not a national security matter or anything, okay? Yeah. This is an accident that has happened in a public space, okay, with consequences on part of the public. We have set up a committee to investigate. Why should the information be such that somebody now has to use the right to information bill, etc., or law to now have access to that information? It is strange. We are all aware something happened in Apiati. A committee, it was set up by the state with public funds to do an investigation. Why should the information not be available? At least if I go to the ministry's website, should I not have that information there as a PDF? I click and read. Why should I have to go under the right to information law before I can even access it, even if that is possible?
And for those who are underplaying or, just undervaluing what the importance of this report will be to the public, what are you able to say about the benefits and what it brings on board in the whole discourse?
Yeah, for me, I think that is fine. When the incident happened, we were all aware, it was everywhere. People had died, people were maimed, etc., etc. But beyond that, 1 year after, have people's lives normalized? Okay, have people's lives normalized, etc., etc. That's what the report attempts to do, to raise the issues. Of course, tell us the status of the situation, and also to raise the issues. If someone has to live in a tent for almost 9 months, in almost 9 months. In fact, if you have ever attended some of these funerals, etc., and you sit under some of those canopies, the tent canopies, sometimes it is very hot sitting under some of these things. Now, if somebody has to live in something like this for, let's say, 8 months, okay, then that is not a situation that we should simply forget about and let the person continue staying there. Yes, I know that they have started with the buildings to end by June of 2023. At least some of the buildings should be ready for the people to move in. That is true. But between the time that it happened and June, before some of them are able to move into some of these places, people are simply struggling. And well, we should not forget that there are people still there living in tents. And even some of the buildings that were secured for them, that were renovated and given to them temporarily. Families were given single rooms. So even if you are 5 or 6, you are given a single room with your whole family to live in. Even that, people are even saying that it is even better than when they were in the tent. So you can imagine those people who are still living in a tent and the kinds of conditions they are in now.
You've put out some recommendations, even before this report is released by the ministry. You believe that there are some things that the public need to be aware of, some few factors that we need to also equally be cautious of, and you believe it should be in the domain of the media for all of us to discuss. And part of that is the recommendations you're making on safety. Why are you asking the public to desist from some acts such as getting to the scene first and filming it first?
Yes, but my brother, if you are a journalist, then it's understood why sometimes you want to break the news first, okay? But if you are not a journalist, if you break the news first, how does it benefit you, for instance? Okay?
Well, some say it's part of the social media craze that has come off now, and many
brother,
are involved in that.
Social media, there are several things we can do on social media. I mean, we can be doing educational things on social media. People are doing backyard farming, etc. in Ghana. It's on social media. There are several things we can do. I mean, they are professional journalists. Let them do their work. But you see, the problem with sometimes people are massing at a particular place because something has happened. What happens is that two things. One, when there is danger, okay, danger that is, that you can be exposed to, then you are sending yourself into the danger, like it happened in Apiati. Now, the other side is that sometimes when people even amass, okay, at a particular place, they even impede the activities of, let's say, emergency response people, etc., who need to be able to do their work. So sometimes, for us being even at some of these places, are rather causing, contributing negatively to the situation.
Let me give you the opportunity to speak to the public, obviously, and to the authorities. You are asking that reports be made public. What will be that message to the authorities and to the general public? And for those who are watching us even in the area near Bogoso and the Apiati community itself, you have a message for them?
Yeah, my first message is, I only can express condolences for whatever it is that happened. I have never had the opportunity to express this to them, even though I have done it one-on-one. At least I express my condolences to all these people. And I really hope that, you see, the state and whoever was responsible, etc., can do something for them, so that, and I really hope that they'll be able to come back to a certain level of normality after all this, so that they can move on with their lives. That's about all I can say.
Well, and we're also looking forward to the report being made public. Dr. Emmanuel Tinkran, thank you for joining us here on The Pulse. When we return, we'll talk about the high cost of university fees, especially with regards to accommodation. It's all coming up here on The Pulse. You want to be a part of that conversation shortly. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Ghana is facing a crisis in the tertiary space as the high cost of tuition and hostel fees are pushing many of the students out of school and hindering the country's ability to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Private universities have been criticized for charging exorbitant fees, while some public universities have been found to be charging fees beyond what has been approved by Parliament. On The Pulse today, we are discussing the stony issue, plus finding solutions. Dennis Labi is president of the National Union of Ghana Students, joins us via Zoom. Benis Imperijaji is with the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. She's the national coordinator, and Peter Nochukoto is ranking member on Parliament's Education Committee. Dennis, you were dealing with this issue a couple of days ago. In fact, I must state that yesterday there were some engagements at the Education Ministry over a similar concern in one of the facilities in the Volta region. Tell us about it and just feed into that conversation of how accommodation is becoming a very key challenge for most of your students on campus. Dennis, are you with us? Dennis, it appears we're having some challenges with Dennis there, but Peter Antes, the Executive Director for IFEST, is also on with us. Dennis, let me start off with you. From the position of GNEC, what are you able to say about, these emerging concerns and challenges that are being witnessed on campus about the high cost of accommodation?
Okay, thank you very much, Blessed. I think we've been looking at educational issues from the basic to SHS to tertiary now. And now we had free senior high school, which was a very good policy introduced by the government. But we are looking at solving educational issues. We have to look at it holistically.
Hello, Dennis. Dennis, you'd have to unmute so we can hear the points that you're making. It appears that your points got
your
points got truncated at some point. If you could just take that for us again. If you could just make the point for us again.
I was making a point. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. If you could just make the point.
All right, thank you. I was saying that when we are looking at solving educational issues, we have to look at it holistically because we started from basic to free SHS then to the tertiary. Now the government introduced free SHS, which is a very good policy to get most children to go to school, especially females, and it is a very good thing. But now that we have a lot of children going from high school, now they have to continue to the tertiary. And this is the thing that fees at the tertiary level is so high that those students or parents who don't have enough money to sponsor their children's education are not able to make it to the tertiary due to the high cost of fees at the tertiary. Now, if you're looking at the fees itself, the academic fees, not to talk about the hostels that the children have to stay in to study. Now, I just had information that in some of the tertiary institutions, you need to get as high as 6,000 Ghana cedis as a hostel fee for a year, apart from the academic fees that you have to pay. So it is making it very difficult for some students to go to the tertiary school. We have a boy with a very brilliant results who has gained admission to go to the tertiary, but the parents are not able to afford. So does it mean that we need to end our education at the senior high school level because that aspect is free? We are able to go, then we are not able to go to the tertiary. So what is the government doing again? What is the Ministry of Education, Ghana Education Service doing again to help us to go higher in the academic ladder as a country? So it is very good that we look at the whole issues holistically. Most students are complaining, parents are complaining about the high tertiary education. Then, notwithstanding the very poor people who have been able to make it because of free senior high school, does it mean that they will never go to the tertiary schools again? Is there any mechanisms in place for us to scout those who cannot really afford tertiary education so that they can be given some assistance? We have the scholarship secretariat and all that, but how easy or how early can those people access? Even the information to access the scholarship scheme is also a challenge because not everybody has the information and how to even access the various scholarship platforms that we have as a country. So we really need to look at it as much as the free SHS is helping us to get more students completing and getting good results. How do we get them to go to the tertiary so that we would equally have a balanced growth in terms of education in our country? So this is our major concern now.
Right, and I'm even just wondering if we should be looking at possible laws that will cap how much or perhaps determine how much the facilities could be rented in and around campus. I don't know if that's feasible, but I want to find out from the ranking member on Parliament's Education Committee, Peter Nochu-Kotoi. Honourable, what's your take on that? The fact that we need further legislation to check the escalating cost of accommodation on campus?
Very much. Education in the country, especially at the tertiary level, is becoming very, very expensive and out of the reach of many people. It is true that tertiary education is important for every child who is able to meet the requirements and then further his or her education to this level. But the cost is what is preventing many people these days. There is a need for us to make sure that conditions available make it possible for everybody to receive the required education. Scholarships are available, but how many people have access and opportunity to obtain such scholarships? That is the major problem, as I heard someone mentioned. So we need, as a nation, to reorganize our tertiary education, because the fee paying is becoming even more common than the regular admission these days. My information is that one university admitted medical students this year, and 90% of those admitted are fee paying. And how many parents can afford? And that is against the law. So we need to streamline our educational requirements or programs and policies so that anyone who qualifies to receive quality tertiary education is given the opportunity. That is my first take on it.
But then I was asking about the laws, whether or not it will be possible to get that.
The law is there, but it is being violated. If the committee and GTEC had not put their heads together this year, I'm sure the fees that some of the universities would have charged would have been out of proportion for the students to bear. So we need to enforce the law, especially on fees, so that parents are able to meet the fees. If you look at the hostel facilities, the public is not able to provide more than it can. So private individuals have taken advantage of that, and they are charging exorbitant rate. And we have tried as a committee to look at that, but we are constrained by the fact that these are private individuals and organizations that have put up these facilities, and they are complaining of the high cost of utilities which they have to pay on behalf of the students. So we only appeal to them to at least charge moderate fees that can be afforded by as many students as possible, if not all students. So that is what we are trying to do now for students in our university, so that they can meet the cost of accommodation. So for the law is there, but we are constrained by the fact that government is unable to meet all the infrastructure needs, such as accommodation for students. That's why the cost of accommodation is rising. But the law is there and it is being implemented, but there are certain loopholes. So I have information that the minister is coming out with an amendment to some of these bills that deal with student welfare in our universities.
But we've seen the difficulty the minister went through when he was trying to, for instance, get some of the universities to readjust their fees.
Yes, that study is not over yet, because that of the University of Ghana is still pending. We met the Vice Chancellor over it at the weekend, and this morning the chairman and myself, we met again, and we are trying to fix a day so that you can meet the minister, the university authorities, and GTEC, and see how best we can resolve the matter, so that peace can prevail on the university campus as far as these fees are concerned. So we are doing what is important and necessary so that the universities can also run efficiently throughout the country.
Well, let's hear from Peter Ante as well. He's the Executive Director for iFirst. And Peter, this is, I'm sure, a challenge that you're learning of because numerous complaints would have come to your outfit about how the universities are going about accommodation on campus and the charges accompanied with that. Yes, Peter? Dr. Peter Ante, if you can hear me, I'm just asking. Yes, I'm just asking about the numerous complaints that have come to your outfit about this.
I don't know if the question is for me. I don't know.
Yes. I'm talking about you. Yes, in terms of...
Yeah, you are asking about complaints of accommodation.
Yeah, and the fact that we're seeing that rise in the cost.
We are what? Sorry, please, can you speak up a little?
I was just talking about the fact that, I mean, the complaints keep coming about the increasing cost on campus, the accommodation issue.
Yes. I think that it's a very serious issue that I believe we have not paid attention to over the years. When I say we, I mean public discourse on accommodation on campus have not been that effective over the years. And I think that it's important that you are throwing light on it. It's a very serious issue because students are already burdened with academic visa fees that they are paying, and in most instances, the halls of residents are not able to accommodate the number of students that we admit, which technically means that the rest of the students would have to find their way around private hostels on campus. Now, one thing I have observed is that these private hostels are also not moderated by any institution. So you would be surprised that just a single room for the 8 months that the students stay on campus could cost as much as 5,000, 4,000, and so on and so forth. And it's simply because the demand is high. And because demand is high, technically prices would shoot up, and the supply is less. So it's important that we are able to find some way around this and moderate the pricing system that hostel owners are charged. I don't know how feasible that is. I listened to the MP, and I think he's talking about certain legislations. I don't know how feasible that is because you're also looking at it from the perspective of that these are private investors.
Yeah, but he says that the law already exists.
Okay, then it means that we just have to enforce it because if we have a law that is able to control the pricing system of hostels around our tertiary institutions, then we just have to enforce it, and that brings back to one of our biggest problems as a country. We are weak when it comes to enforcement of some of these rules. But it's a very serious issue on campus, especially when you look at it from the perspective that we want a lot of people to access tertiary education, and our education system is said that it is residence-based. I think over the years, some of us have argued that there should be a system where people can access tertiary education without necessarily moving from wherever they are to campus. But of course, you would understand the kind of euphoria that comes with staying on campus, the kind of social contact, social connections that people build. And therefore, even if universities are able to have satellite campuses all over the country, I still believe that people will still want to come to Cape Coast, go to Kumasi, go to Takwa, go to Accra, and experience campus life. And that is the reality on the ground.
Benes, let me come to you in terms of finding solutions to this. Is the aspect of the law enough, or we can now be moving to a point where management of the schools can engage this private owners of the hostel facilities to try and do something about their charges?
Well, when I was in UCC some years back, the Student Representative Council took this initiative. I don't know how it ended, but there were engagements around campus, hostel owners, and there was an attempt to try to rationalize the fees that they charge. But I think it didn't yield any fruit. So maybe university management can pick this up. I don't know how far that can go. Especially, that's why I was saying that if there is a rule, then we should just enforce the rule. Because if I'm building a hostel and there's demand on it, and if you don't come and if you don't want to be in that hostel, another person is ready, available to pay, then the only thing that we can appeal to these people is their moral conscience. That look, these are students that are accessing tertiary education, and charging them 5,000, 6,000, 4,000, 3,000 for 8 months is something that is very, very unconscionable. So you should look at the pricing system. Maybe that is just the appeal. But if you have a law, then I think the best way is to enforce the law. And if you are enforcing the law, then we can now make sure that these fees are not charged above a certain limit. Or what we can also do is to do hostel classification, so that sometimes you go to some of the hostels that are charging 3,000, 4,000, it beats your imagination. So that when a hostel is classified as, let's say, A, their fees are pegged around a certain level. If a hostel is classified as, let's say, B, their fees are pegged at a certain level. I think this can be done by the rent control authorities in collaboration with the university authorities and the student leadership, and of course the hostel managers, so that we can have some kind of uniformity when it comes to pricing of hostel fees around our campuses. Other than that, I don't see the other alternative. Yes, the other alternative could also be that government should invest in the hostel facilities in our various campuses. So if government is now going into the building of hostels, then I think that the government can subsidize the prices, and that can trickle down to the hostel market, so that when people see that most of the students are accessing government hostel, then they would also reduce their price to be able to attract some of these students. The last alternative, as I've said, is now to decentralize the campuses of our various big universities. So UCC would have to have a lot of satellite campuses that would be available for students to access education wherever they are, without necessarily moving to the various main mother campuses. Or once in a while, they can come to campus and experience campus life.
Dr. Peter Anti, thank you. We need to wrap up. Let me take the final words from Benis Jachi and also the Honorable Peter Nochu-Kotui. Benis, for you, don't you feel that demand is also playing a role here? Benis, if you can hear me, I'm just asking you if you think that the increasing demand is also part of the challenge that we're having, and kindly unmute for me. It appears we're having some challenges there. Honorable Peter Nochu-Kotui, let's round up with you. I was talking about the point about demand there, the fact that, well, even if you say don't rent at a higher cost, the demand is exceeding what is being supplied on campus. So students are forced to go to neighboring facilities just to try and plead to get a place to sleep and to learn. So if that's the case, it appears that you need to deal with that as well.
Yeah, the demand is very high, although we are saying that the private hostels are charging higher, which is true but unfortunate. The demand for even their facilities is high. Students are finding it very difficult even to get accommodation with the private hostels, especially I know that of the University of Ghana. So what is important, we advise the student body when they appeared before us, is that as student leadership, they should talk to the management of the university so that they can be part of the management of the hostels. If there is a board, the students should be represented, because they have used the school land to put up the building. So they should have a voice in how they are charged. The hostel owners cannot just get up and be charging them any fees at all. So there's a need for them as a student body to have a say in how much they are charged so that they can also pay reasonable fees for the hostels. And I'm sure if that is done per our advice, I think we can go a long way to probably control the arbitrariness of the fees that are being charged. Okay. Then also, I think the university authorities themselves should also invest in hostel facilities. They shouldn't wait for government or only private individuals to come and put up such buildings on their property and make money out of the property that is the land that the university has. So the university should also be thinking of such an investment. And I'm sure if they do so, the returns will be enough for them to run their schools. So I'm sure collaborative efforts should be the priority so that they can all be together and then run the university, especially academic accommodation-wise, effectively.
I'm grateful. That's Peter Nochukutu. He's the ranking member on Parliament's Education Committee. Well, some parents in Kumasi say they are compelled to withdraw their awards from private basic schools as obviously the cost of education in those facilities are shooting up. The parents are worried and say that they are moving their children to public schools has become inevitable due to the ballooning cost of tuition, feeding, transportation and stationery. They believe it has become necessary to find an equally good but affordable education for their wards. Love FM's Clinton Ipoa caught up with some of the parents and filed this report.
Statistically, one child out of 100 bears.
The inflicting economic crisis is only having a toll on people's pockets, including the educational choices of parents. Now, parents are compelled to enroll their wards in a school of circumstance other than school of choice. It is now expensive for parents to walk their wards to the gates of private schools to access quality education. The cost of tuition, transportation, feeding, and even stationery has seen an almost 200% increase. This has affected pupil intake in private schools, with some schools recording low attendance.
International school, class 4 Accra, 60 cedis.
My ward in primary 4 is buying 10 books at 45 Ghana cedis and 60 cedis each, aside school fees, transportation and feeding. Considering all these, it's economical to enroll him in a government school where everything is free.
Now almost school fees this year. The
bill received for my 2 children in a private school was too much. I am paying almost 2,000 cedis for books, so I have decided to enroll them in a public school.
The intakes in private schools are decreasing, and this has the potential of collapsing the private education sector. We spoke to the stakeholders who are concerned about the issue. But for some education officials, it is a positive gain as they comment on the government for its intervention to salvage the education in public schools. Ashanti Regional Director of Education, Willie Kwame Amankra Apia, says interventions like school feeding, no school fees are some pull factors for the spree for public education.
There are a lot of government intervention. If you come to the private school, the cost is there. But when you come to the public school, we don't take anything. We have food feeding. We give them food. So at the end of the day, it lessens the burden of the parents. So some of these things is aiding up for them to bring their children to the public schools.
Educationist Bashir Shuhu, however, believes the situation may leave many private school owners bankrupt, render many unemployed, and eventually collapse the private education sector. He is proposing the government extend the free stationery initiative to private schools and tax waivers to ensure sustainability of the private education sector.
If a school goes down or closes down,
it means you have more than 10 people losing their job. The employer who has invested so much may not be able to even recoup anything. So if somebody is coming in to shoulder the government responsibility, the government must not renege on supporting these private schools. These textbooks that parents are crying, the government could at least give them a section of it for their libraries. They pay taxes. If government can give them some level of waiver, because they pay tax on every single teacher, government could give them some leverage, some waiver, some deductions. I'm pretty sure most of the schools will bounce back.
Reporting for JoyNews, Clinton Yeboah.
And to be diagnosed with a hole in heart could mean a death sentence for many. Of course, in Ghana, because of the cost of implication that comes with it. On the average, heart surgery in Ghana costs between $6,000 and $13,000 US dollars. With the cost of heart surgery out of reach of most Ghanaians, many parents are left to wait for the benevolence of individuals and organizations, and in some cases die before care would arrive. But as Elton Bobe reports, a Chinese investor has stepped up to pay the cost of treatment, at least for the next 10 years.
Statistically, 1 child out of 100 births has a heart or chest condition. Smoking, excessive drinking, long exposure to X-ray, and poor eating habits by pregnant women are some of the causes of heart and chest conditions in children. The taking of drugs without prescription and the failure of some expectant mothers to attend antenatal care are the other causes. For most patients suffering the disease, cost is a huge barrier. Here is consultant at the National Cardiothoracic Center, Dr. Ko Ensua Mensah.
One of the pains that we have had is to see a child with a hole in heart condition who can be saved through relatively simple surgery. And there are no resources to be able to do that. It's very painful. Sometimes when you mention the amount, the parents break out in tears, because some of them cannot actually imagine what the equivalent of $6,000 look like, because they work with such a very small capital. And to have the opportunity to be able to do free surgeries for 25 children every year, that's about a third of our capacity now. It's extremely significant.
But there is hope now, at least for the next 10 years, because patients without means to undergo surgery can apply for support from the Shenyuan and Shenyuat Foundation. Named after 17-year-old Shenyuan, himself a hole in heart survivor, is the son of Chinese investor Shen Shan, who is a founder and chairman of the Sunda and Keda groups of companies with operations in Ghana in the last 20 years. Realizing the difficulties his son went through and the impact it had on his family after being diagnosed with a hole in heart at age 5, he gladly accepted a call when businessman Herbert Mensah suggested to him the idea of lending a hand to help patients in need at the Cardiothoracic Center.
Playing some of my pound from my heart. You know, when my elder son was born in 2005, after he was born 4 or 5 months, we got from the doctor, he has the heart disease. That time, the period, we feel very painful. And we go to a very good hospital in China, and he do the operation. He gets saved. But after he gets saved, in the next 4 or 5 years, he always sick, you know, because the body is not so strong. I feel we need to do something. But actually, you know, in year 2005, that time I discussed with my wife. I say we need to help the people, the children who has the heart disease in the future when we are qualified. We are thinking about that time in 2005. But before we think to do that in China. But when Mr. Herbert told me the child here in Ghana need to help.
For 17-year-old Shenyuan, it is an honor to be the face of the foundation, and it promises to promote activities of the National Cardiothoracic Center in China with the aim of attracting more financial support for the needy in desperate need of care at the facility.
I've learned that in Ghana, in many places, you know, many children, their condition is that they cannot go to the hospital because of many issues and problems, such as the economic problems. So here I understand the pain and the hurt that people that suffer from heart disease is really really painful. So I really want to help the child to make them to get saved and be cured, to get in the hospital, to have a better life. And this is the condition. So I decided to establish this foundation. I think for every year I will support more than 25 children and up to like 25 to 30 children. And by the year after this year, there will be another 25 children, and I will support them.
Chief Executive Officer of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Topoku Wariampoma, says because of the cost of equipment, the recent depreciation of the cedi against the dollar had made it more difficult for parents to get the cedi equivalent to undergo surgery.
Many times we find that many people are not aware of what can be done locally or within our country, and I'm grateful that with this initiative, he's decided that he's going to invest in the local facility, which will then make sure that our doctors can get the necessary wherewithal to be able to treat our patients. And I believe that with this, he will also get more out of his investment.
And that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. There's a lot more for you to read.